Hey everybody, this is Cody with TrailChasers.net. Thanks for watching this video. We purchased a set of Notch Customs Fender Flares for our 2001 WJ Grand Cherokee, and this first video is the installation on the front end of the vehicle. Please check out TrailChasers.net for future videos where we install the back end and do some cleanup. Thanks again. When we started this project, we really didn't know what we were getting into. We spent a lot of time talking and measuring and looking. The installation instructions are pretty good, but if you've never hacked away the sheet metal on your vehicle, the process can be kind of intimidating. So we took some time to go through the whole thing, and now that we understand what we're doing, I think the project would go a lot smoother a second time around. To help better understand where the studs were going to be installed on the fender, we used some hobby paint and put a dab of hobby paint on the end of the stud and press it up against the fender. That gave us a mark on the stud where we knew where to drill to. Now keep in mind, no matter how big you drill these holes, you're going to drill them bigger. We found that we needed to make the holes a little bit larger to get play to make it fit right, but you've got some pretty good fender washers to hold the fender flares in place. To know where you had to cut, the installation instructions tell you to draw a line 1 inch below the bottom of the fender flare. Steve came up with a really good idea to do this. We took a socket, which you'll see in this next picture, and taped it in between two markers, measuring 1 inch between the two tips, and we just ran that along the bottom of the fender flare, and it gave us a good mark to cut to. Once we had our mark, on the first fender we used a 4-inch grinding wheel or cutting wheel to cut the fender flare. This worked, but I found that it was difficult to have any precision when you made the cut. We found that after we did the first cut with the cutting wheel, we ended up having to grab a pair of tin snips to clean up our cut. As an ex-air conditioning guy, I found it easier to just do the cut with a pair of tin snips. You can go to Home Depot and purchase a pair of red snips, green snips, and hand seamers, which are standard sheet metal tools, that'll make it a lot easier to cut this clean and not have to go back a second time. Once you have your cuts along the fender, you have to cut tabs and bend them outward in order to get the fender flare to stick on there correctly. When you cut these out, wait, don't look at the guy in the background, don't pay attention to him. When you cut these out, they're pretty sharp. You got to be careful. Boom, Steve just hit his head, and I found it hilarious. Watch out with those sharp pieces of sheet metal. You can use a pair of tin snips or channel locks, or I'm using a pair of hand seamers to bend these tabs. These tabs will go inside the fender flare, so make sure that you cut them and bend them above the line that you drew. We found that we had to cut and bend and put the fender on and pull it off and recut and rebend several times to get it correct. So don't get frustrated if you're doing it more than once. As I said, you'll put these things on and take them off several times before you get a good fit. You may even have to do a little bit of grinding or trimming on the plastic to make it fit correctly. Pay close attention to the front of the fender flare and the back corner of the fender flare where they touch the body. That's where most of the trimming has to happen. Once the fender flare is in position, we had to trim the bumper. We just took the same general arc as the fender flare and trimmed it with a pair of tin snips. To be honest, the tire's not installed at this time, so we don't know if this is the right arc or if it's going to give us enough clearance, but we cut it out knowing that we may have to trim it more down the road. After trimming the bumper, we found that there's a piece of the unibody that needs to be trimmed out in order to get clearance on the front side of the wheel well. We did some of it with a cutting wheel and some of it with a sawzall. And on the back side, there's a pinch seam that needs to be bent over and pushed out of the way. We were concerned that if that seam was left alone, that if the wheel stuffed in the fender, it would cause some damage. So we just bent it over with a pair of hand seamers and beat it till it was flush. Overall, I'm really happy with the progress that we made on this project. These fender flares are pretty stout. If you go to the Notch Customs website, you'll see what they do to test these things, and that's no joke. These things are super solid. The front side installation was a little bit easier than what we've experienced on the back side so far. There'll be follow-up videos for that. Thanks again for watching this video. Please check out TrailChasers.net for future videos on installations, reviews, and trip reports. We look forward to seeing you out on the trail.